U.S. senators putting America's largest banks on the hot seat. We have analysts warning of a possible Bitcoin bear market in October, but at the same time, you have other analysts saying Bitcoin is setting up for a huge rally at the end of 2025. And on top of all that, we have Wintermute challenging the SEC on token rules. A lot to unpack here. Let's dive in. So jumping right into it here, we have JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and 22 other banks in the crosshairs of U.S. senators over a law that could allegedly increase debanking. Now, if you ever been through debanking years ago, there was not the same sentiment for crypto, right? So if you ended up doing crypto transactions at an institution, particularly these institutions that they're wording right here, JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, there was a high probability that your account would be closed. And essentially they would say they reserve the right to do business with whoever they want, right? So, some type of verbiage like that because of crypto. So now they're saying that there's a law that could allegedly increase debanking again. So several U.S. senators are demanding that 25 U.S. banks address concerns that a recent law change may increase debanking. So here we're seeing that there is a ranking member in the U.S. Senate, Elizabeth Warren, who is known to be not necessarily pro-crypto, but we'll see. I don't know. I mean, historically, she's known for not being that much pro-crypto. And what she's saying here is overdraft and non-sufficient fund fees are one of the most common exploitive mechanisms big banks use to target the poor. The CFPB found nearly twice as many consumers with incomes between $35,000 and $65,000 were charged overdraft fees and NSF fees, which is about 35%, versus consumers with incomes above $100,000, $175,000. So diving right into this here, JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America, and 22 other banks are in the crosshairs of U.S. senators. So you have Elizabeth Warren, who is notoriously known for not necessarily being pro-crypto. I don't know necessarily if it's that she's anti-crypto or just anti President Donald Trump, who's pro-crypto. I'm not sure which one, but she's coming out here with a letter to 25 banks, pretty much saying that, you know, in late 2024, the CFPB, which is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, adopted a rule that prohibited banks from charging exorbitant overdraft fees and generally capped them at $5. However, President Trump signed a Republican-led bill into law in May that overturned the rule. Essentially, that letter is saying that, you know, pretty much people with lower incomes or not as high incomes, I should say, incomes between $35,000 and $65,000 were charged overdraft fees at a higher rate naturally, right? Because lower income in comparison to people that make $100,000, $175,000. So here Senator Warren is saying that overdraft fees are the source of tens of millions of bank account closures, which is what she's saying is going to push the notion of being unbankable, right? Or being debanked, right? Because your account's gonna be overdrawn, and then once it's overdrawn for a certain period of time, it's gonna get closed, or AKA charged off, and then you're not able to go to another bank because you're in the system of, hey, you have an account that's charged off, right? So it's a pattern. So essentially, how this ties into crypto is essentially forcing people to crypto. It'll force them, because when you can't get a traditional bank account for whatever reason, especially after in this system called the check systems, you're essentially blacklisted from opening accounts in the United States. So this is that's how it ties to crypto, right? Because crypto, you essentially become your own bank, and you don't have to worry about overdraft fees. You don't have to worry about any of that. You transaction fees maybe, right? Which is minuscule in comparison, especially if you're sending money. The cost you would pay in comparison is far less. So we'll see how they adopt. It's essentially pushing these institutions to adopt crypto, and you're gonna have to adapt or die, right? There's gonna be so many alternatives that they're gonna have to on ramp cryptocurrency services. It's going to be a must for sure. Next up, we have Wintermute urges the SEC to exclude network tokens from securities rule. Wintermute said clear SEC guidance will keep the U.S. markets competitive, foster regulator dialogue, and support innovation in digital assets. So here, asking for clarification on the jurisdiction of the SEC. And Wintermute likens network tokens to commodities, which is, I thought, it's hard for me to believe that we're still even having that conversation after what the SEC just went through with XRP. The SEC made a statement regarding Bitcoin and Ethereum. So, just clear regulatory framework is what the ask is, right? So to confirm that network tokens should not be classified as securities. So that feedback is what we're still after everything. The ask is wanting regulatory clarity, so you're not dancing the line, not knowing you're even dancing the line with what the ask is, and with what you're doing, right? With what you're dealing with. So you have tokens, and what could happen is you could have any crypto project, and the SEC will just say, hey, that's a security, and then it's a whole nother process, right? Because you got to go through it. That's what happened before, right? And what he's saying is misclassification risk stifling innovation and driving blockchain development and trading activity outside the U.S. markets. 100% agreed. So I definitely think with the change in leadership in the United States, you're going to see answers to questions like this. Clarity, right? And that's what you're going to see. And I believe we're going to see that within Q4 of this year, 1000%. So next up, we have people claiming the Bitcoin bear market due in October with $50,000 bottom target, says an analyst. And the reason why he's saying that is because he's going with the 4-year cycle. Now, I was in a space yesterday, and that was a question: is the 4-year cycle does that still exist? And my answer was, I think it still exists, but I think it's going to be different, right? I think there's going to be cycles, right? I don't necessarily think it's going to be as cut and dry anymore as the traditional 4-year cycle that we've seen. There's too much going on for us to think that everything's just going to stay the same. So according to the 4-year cycle, Bitcoin should hit $50,000 for October of 2026. That's the price target, according to the 4-year cycle. We'll see if that happens. So Bitcoin could have just 1 month before the end of a 4-year cycle, triggering a $50,000 collapse. So can Bitcoin escape its scheduled bear market? Bitcoin faces a new reckoning as the bull market endures its latest 15% correction from all-time highs. And so this is what we're seeing here. And the note is still, I can't help but think this could be enough time for Bitcoin to dip towards 100K range before skyrocketing past $140,000 within the same period. Who would dare to doubt that scenario? So love what I'm seeing with just the practicality as to how that could happen, even though I personally believe that we're past that point, right? And here we have the decision zone here. We'll see if we're going to break below, which is clear TA. We'll pull up RTA. I still see that we have every intention to make a new high. Now, this article did say October of 2026, which would align with the 4-year cycle. I just don't see it, guys. I don't see it. Now, we could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. I just think that there's so much adoption happening and things that are changing, which that 4-year cycle is pretty much tailored towards what we would see from a retail standpoint. I don't necessarily think that with all the adoption and utility being a prime focus and the people having Bitcoin strategic reserves now, I just don't see the 4-year cycle being the same, and that 4-year cycle theory being the same of what we've seen previously. So Bitcoin price targets 50,000 by October 2026. We'll be around. We'll let you know for sure. Lord willing, we'll be around. We'll let you know for sure if if that happens. We'll be around to let you guys know, because looking at Bitcoin now, Bitcoin's around 110. You have a little bit of a pullback. I don't know. Looking at all the TA, if anything, this, to me, on the daily time frame, this looks like an inverted head and shoulders right now. And maybe I have a bullish sentiment, right? It's hard for me to gas that, to wrap my head around that being something that's valid. So we'll see. Nothing's off the table, and we'll let you know either way. Just our 2 cents on that. So next up, we have billionaire Ray Dalio. Now, just to preface this, Ray Dalio just stepped down as a chair in this company. I think it was Bridgewater. He stepped down, and now he's talking about crypto, right? He stepped down. This guy was a brilliant top investor. He's like the number 2, right? Warren Buffett, and then really it's Ray Dalio. So when it comes to investments, when it comes to especially within the index markets, very high performing fund that he had. Ray Dalio saying that printing more dollars could make crypto an attractive currency. Now he's talking about crypto. So really what it looks like to me is he stepped down saying, look, the old ways of making money are done. Let me step out of here. Let me step down. And now he's talking about crypto. So I believe it's a pivot. Now he's older, right? He could be done. But here he's saying those debt situations are contributing to the rise in gold and cryptocurrency prices. He says crypto is now an alternative currency that has its supply limited. So all things being equal, if the supply of the dollar money rises and or the demand for it falls, that would likely make crypto an attractive alternative currency. Now he's talking about crypto. All right. He says he doesn't view stablecoins exposure to treasuries as a potential systemic risk. So he's still giving his feedback. I think he's pivoting. I think it's a pivot. I think he knows writing's on the wall. The old way of making money is fading away. I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna cash out. Right? Let you guys run Bridgewater. Let you guys run my company, and I'm gonna pivot and I'm gonna start getting in crypto. That's what it seems like, guys. Because Ray Dalio wasn't talking a lot about crypto. He doesn't. He started talking about crypto probably within the past year or two, because before it was all silence. Don't touch it. No comment. Nothing to say. So I think it's a strong pivot for him to to ultimately be a part of the biggest wealth transfer we've ever seen, for sure. So next up, we have the U.S. initial jobless claims rise to over 2-week high. This is bullish for crypto. This is another sentiment because they're going to have to cut rates. So the likelihood for a rate cut just went up to over 97%, 97.6%. The odds of a rate cut in the Fed meeting that is on September 17th, guys. 13 days for next Fed meeting. And we will see what that looks like for crypto, right? You typically, when rates are cut, crypto explodes. So the notion that we're going to be entering a bear market, even though this article does say October of 2026, but that means the bear market would have to start probably around February, and it would have to dump. It would literally have to dump. So this is almost a highlight here to make sure that you're taking profits, because anything could happen. Anything could happen. So even though I don't think it will, I think we're going to see price appreciation and bullish sentiment for a long time. This is still a possibility, right? So don't forget to take profits. So we do have this rate probability here. So everyone's gearing up. So I think this is going to springboard into October, right? Starting September 17th, which is only 13 days away. Once that announcement happens, you're going to see immediate price appreciation, almost the equivalent of what you saw when Jerome Powell was speaking a couple weeks ago. And he pretty much tiptoed around a Fed rate decrease, rate cut. I think you're going to see the same scenario as soon as this happens. If they announce rates cut, we're going to see a bullish explosion, bullish moves, and then we'll see if we actually sustain that. That's what I want to see. Are we going to sustain that, or is it going to be like the Jackson Hole meeting where Jerome Powell's talking, goes up, and then spends the next couple of days pulling right back? Right, we'll see what happens. So looking at Bitcoin, I'm still bullish. I do want to see a break of 114,000. That's the target. I need to see a break above this level. I have this marked here. If not, we need to make a new low. We'd actually give you that low here as well so you can see it. This is kind of the zone. This is a zone I need to see broken either way to kind of determine a directional bias of where we're heading. Ethereum broke out of the counter trend line, the triangle or counter trend line, whatever you want to call it, and broke back in. And we have XRP as well. Pretty much XRP is respecting that level almost perfectly, guys. Respecting that level of $2 and what was that? $2 and about 71 cents to a T, 270 about. Respecting that level perfectly. We'll see if we hold. So there's a lot of indecision that I think is going to take about 2 weeks to form out to play. We could have a breakout prior, but I definitely think it's really waiting on this Fed meeting. I think that is going to be one of the catalysts that really explodes the market and just pops the market. Whether short term or long term, that's to be determined. But I think that's going to be one of the things that happen, especially with all the news that's happening. And then we have that, but then also in October, so probably about 33 weeks later, we have ETF decisions. So it's almost looking like the perfect storm. So if your bag's already packed, you're going to enjoy this ride because it's looking like the perfect storm for price to continue to pump and appreciate. So a lot to unpack today, but definitely wanted to dive in and give you guys a market update. Hope you guys got some value out of this video. Keep moving forward in everything that you do. We'll see you soon.